Hit it. And welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori La Bey, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort. All right, here we go. What you think about, you will bring about. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori La Bey, and I'm thrilled that you are going to be joining us today. Our conversation is going to be about music and self-care, and what a beautiful match that is. But before I introduce our guest, I always like to do a few shout-outs. And first, I want to shout out to the Clarion, gosh, here I go. I have a migraine. I'll let you know that, so I might be a little jumbled today. To the Mark Arneson Band, who wrote the beautiful song Clarion Call. And if you like that, you can go ahead and download that on any of your music platforms that you would like. Also, for those of you that are new, Alzheimer Speaks is about sound information, not just sound bites. Our goal is really to raise all voices, big and small, from those diagnosed to those who care and serve for them, advocates, and so many others. We are live today, so you can go ahead and call in with any questions if you'd like, or comments at 323-870-4602. That's 323-870-4602. And let's see, I want to shout out to the Brain Donor Project. This is something new that I just learned about, hot off my email, and they are looking for brains to donate. And what I love about this project is there's no fee from what I'm seeing here. And a lot of times, it costs $900 to over $1,000 to get your brain autopsied and diagnosed. So this will help in terms of, pushing dementia research forward, but you don't have to have dementia. They need brains that aren't affected as well, so anybody's brain is welcome. So just check out the Brain Donor Project to get more information on that. I'm hoping that they will list themselves in the Dementia Map, which is our global resource directory that we launched, so people can find them that way. A couple of wonderful resources on that I will just mention is the Memory Cafe directory, where I just saw a notice they're up to 149 cafes, I believe, that are doing virtual, and there are many that are starting to come back online or meeting back in person now as well. So lots of different options there. I believe there's like 1,000 of them listed around the country. And then Choral Health is still allowing people to download their two music apps, Music First and Choral Faith. So you can go to Choral Faith or Choral Health, that's CORO Health.com for more information. Also, let's see, Artist Senior Living does wonderful free educational programs, which I have the honor to be speaking at one of them in August. That'll be August 10th. It's a Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 Eastern Time. Anybody's welcome. It's online. And you can just go to the artistway.com care, and they typically have one every single month. My topic is going to be on conscious, compassionate care for care partners, because we don't tend to care for ourselves as well as we probably should in many moments. And then November 2nd, Together for Dementia is an international conference that's going to be taking place. It's through the research charity Brace, which is a dementia resource group. And you can find more information about actually both of those programs at alzheimerspeaks.com. So we're going to hear from the footbar walker, and we will be right back with our guest.
Introducing the life-changing footbar walker.
I'm Peggy from Danville, Kentucky, and I'm 91 years old. The footbar walker revolutionized my care of George. The saving that I made from having to put him in a nursing home came to about $192,000. The footbar walker opens and closes just like a standard walker. The only thing that is different is the top bar and the foot bar. Does that ever make a difference?
Does someone you love use a walker? Do they struggle to get up from a seated position? Are you a caregiver dealing with physical pain and stress as you help your patient? The footbar walker was designed to assist not only the patient, but also the caregiver. Patients have more control standing up, and no lifting from the caregiver is required. See how it works at thefootbarwalker.com. That's thefootbarwalker.com. Peggy, would you recommend the footbar walker?
Do I ever? I would not be in the health that I'm in today at this age had it not been for the footbar walker.
Well, we're back, and I get to introduce you to Bill Protzmann. His mission is to raise awareness of the power of music as self-care. He is the world's leading expert on the power of music for physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And he holds a magna cum laude degree in piano performance and creative writing. And he has been successful as an entrepreneur for over 30 years. In 2011, Bill launched Music Care, Inc., and that was for the purpose of cooperation to teach and advocate for practical ways that music can be used for self-care. I think this is just a brilliant, brilliant idea. In 2014, he was actually recognized by the National Council for Behavioral Health with an award of excellence, which is actually like the equivalent of winning an Oscar. So I'm just thrilled to have Bill with us. So Bill, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're able to take this time with us today.
Oh, thank you, Lori, and thank you for being courageous and bravely showing up in spite of, all the the physical issues. I know what headache is like, and it's just, oh, my gosh, right? Caregivers, if you've ever had a headache, just slows you down, doesn't it?
Yep, it sure does. It sure does. Now, one of the questions I ask every guest before I kind of dive into the specifics of their topic is, have you personally been touched by dementia, in your own family or circle of friends?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We all, I think, are going to be touched by something like that at some point. And I was fortunate both my parents were lucid all the way, but my mother's parents were not. And it was tough to watch. I was a teenager. It was tough to watch that situation and wonder, what is happening here? You don't know, right? You've never had experience with someone who's, experiencing memory issues or experiencing sort of losing their abilities that way. It can be really bizarre for the first time. And, of course, later on in life, I have a dear veteran friend who lost his wife to dementia and Alzheimer's, and watching that process, it's nothing like The Notebook, people. It's much more real and visceral and poignant than that. So, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's always interesting to hear people's stories and stuff. Let's get right to it. Why don't you tell us what is music care?
So music care is this crazy notion, I guess, that in between music as entertainment, which we all love, and music therapy, which is the clinical use of music in a therapeutic relationship with a credentialed, board-certified therapist to achieve some sort of psychological or emotional goal, there's this wide open space. And in that space, you've got preachers preaching and worship, and people who use music to exercise, and people who use music to relax, and just this whole unlimited potential for how music can be more of a tool versus just a background sound. And so much awareness in that area over the last 20 years. Obviously, I mentioned exercise and worship and relaxation, but it goes so far beyond that. And I get to play in that space and help people come to a more skillful appreciation of how they can really use the music that they love for all kinds of reasons. For physical reasons, of course, we all know about music and healing. For mental reasons, helping to focus, that's a big thing, and binaural beats are big in that place. And as well as in the emotional world of helping to understand and regulate emotion and use emotion well. And then the great, unmeasurable thing that we call spirituality, everything that science can't measure falls into that category. How music connects us, and brings us to a place of full awareness and helping us to feel grounded, and all those wonderful esoteric things that are very much a part of sound and rhythm for us. So that's music care in that space.
Well, that was a nice, easy way to explain it. I know when I think of music, I always think of this calmness and this peacefulness. Even if it gets me riled up and I'm in a good mood and, the beat's really strong, I'm still kind of in that zone of comfort. And yet I know that there are some songs that can also trigger a sadness with me, maybe for a loss of a relationship, or, music is just so powerful, and yet it's so subtle that I think we forget its power because it's in our life every day. But I think most of us don't really think about why it's in our life or why we really enjoy it, what it does to us in our physiology as a whole. Do you feel that people kind of take music for granted at all?
I don't think it's as much as taking it for granted as sort of not remembering its power. You were right to make that observation, Lori, because it's all around us, and it actually is sustaining us in ways that we don't even understand, and for a lot of part don't even notice. But there it is, doing its wonderful thing for us. And at least in the West, our understanding of music is more or less clinically driven. We want to see how music, intervenes with things. From the folks on the far outside of using music to kill microorganisms that cause cancer, to music therapists who are using music in an actual therapeutic relationship to accomplish some psychological goal. And the science, of course, is fascinating on this. The functional MRIs that they're able to do that are stimulated by music, and music is used to deliver modalities like rearranging the neurons in your head. It's fascinating what you can do with sound and rhythm. And so there is this awareness, but I think the lay person's awareness, like how are we who are caregivers going to use music more skillfully? That's really the area where there's so much opportunity right now. Everybody wants, better than they have, and that better could be mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. And so let's feed that, and see where we can go with it.
Well, I like that answer, and I think you're right. Everybody does want more, and a lot of times we don't even know what that more is, as a whole. Why do you think music care is such a vital part and so important for self-care, especially in the world we're living in today?
Wow, there's a lot of insight in that question. I'll answer that by quoting you, because when you were introducing us, you said something that's really profound, which is we don't care for ourselves as well as we probably should. And I agree so much, Lori, because we're not neglectful people. I mean, we exercise, we work out, we eat right, we do all these things. But the fact that sound is so available right now, the music is so available, ought to mean that we have at our fingertips some aspect of self-care that we haven't yet explored. And the reason that music is so wonderful for that is because of its holistic nature. It doesn't just work on one thing. It works on the whole of us. And to be able to embrace that, wow, do we need that in the world right now? And it's a rhetorical question. But in so many ways, what we're seeing in the world right now, at least in the music industry, for example, is this wonderful influence of new sound and rhythm that's never been heard in the way that it's being heard now. And the pioneers there are actually offering this as actual self-care and talking about it in that way. I mean, you hear Lizzo talk about that. What Billie Eilish is doing with her music is just transformational. And Jacob Collier is offering us ways to get into music more fully than we have perhaps been offered those ways in the past. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pop music. I love pop music. Concerts are amazing. But this music is more contemplative and more about being present and allowing sound and rhythm and sometimes lyrics to become a part of who we are and leading us deeper in that way. So it's a fascinating time to be in this work right now.
Oh, I agree. And I think, just with the artists that you name too, they're allowed, music can give voice, or, it can be instrumental, and you said, it has the beat, it's got the rhythm, all of those things, but the lyrics with so much of this it's allowing people to express their true thoughts, the good, the bad,
Yes.
and the ugly that are delivered to us in life, without shame, just acknowledging that these things exist. And I think kind of like, with dementia, there's so much isolation. And, when I started Alzheimer Speaks, my goal was to raise voices, all around the world and to be inclusive. And when you do that, it takes the scariness and the aloneness away. And I think what
Yes.
you're bringing to people is the same thing. You're saying there's so much comfort that can be delivered in this realm if you just tap into it, and it's readily available. And there's different ways to be able to do that. Nothing in this world is black and white. That's how people become entrepreneurs and deliver different services, products, and tools. But this is a big treasure chest out there, and I think people need to open it fully to see exactly what is inside, and how this can help you on multiple levels in your life. And
Sure.
so I'm really excited, with what you have. What kind of person do you think is best suited to learn and use music here?
This is a fantastic question. There are people who get it who are very young, and people who get it who are old. The age difference doesn't seem to matter, but the mindset, to use kind of a catchy phrase, tends to be one of someone who understands that there is a purpose for practice. Whether you're practicing yoga or meditation or prayer or an instrument or whatever, you have that understanding that the more effort that you put in on a consistent basis, the closer you are to being able to run the marathon, for example, or whatever the goal happens to be. So there's an investment in your own self that's more than a Band-Aid, right? You can cover the wound, or you can actually get behind it. And the invitation I think that we have, Lori, is more than what kind of person. It comes down to a question of how deeply are we going to feel? And that's a big question. Like I was taught, so guys mostly are, to stuff your feelings. And that, as we know from psychological research, can be really detrimental. And if you've done a lifetime of that, you wind up at the end of your life with all of that still bottled up inside you. But the opportunity, the invitation is to be able to connect on those things, to be able to share. We love to share our joy, but joy is only 25% of what's available in the broad sense of the word. There's also anger and fear and sadness. And if you've ever spoken with a combat veteran or with a caregiver who's been there at the bedside of so many people who have passed away, like my daughter who's a chaplain, you start to get this sense that we are connected in our grief, that we are connected in our anger, that we are connected in our fear, and also, of course, we are connected in our joy. And that if we were able to do a better job on the three feelings that we don't like, we might find ourselves in a more unified or connected or inclusive way of being in the world versus being so lonely and so isolated and thinking that it's a good thing. Nothing against, American independence and all of that, and our, we're all out there like it's the Wild West, but we can get so much more done together, especially if you happen to be in that place where someone you love no longer recognizes you or can't communicate with you in the ways that are satisfying. Music can open that, as well as opening you to the rest of your caregiving tribe, who's also, of course, very interested in your well-being and how it's going with your cared for. And being able to connect as care partners is much more than just sharing how do we do this or how do we do that. It comes down to sharing our love, sharing what it's like to be in that place. And music's a great place for that. It's a safe laboratory where we can go and respond together to sound and rhythm that that evokes all of that for us. Maybe it makes us cry, maybe it makes us afraid, but sharing that is so much better, as you're saying. To be able to do that in partnership is so much better than going it alone. There's no need for loneliness when music is present.
Oh, I agree. I liked when you mentioned about, three emotions that none of us really want to deal with. But, I think part of it is all emotions are normal, and yet there is shame wrapped around if you feel, angry and frustrated or, some of those negative ones. But everybody goes through those phases, and we have to realize they are a phase. They will flow through us. But a lot of times they can't flow through us if we don't recognize them. If we're stuffing them, to me, anyways, in my world, if I stuff my emotions, they kind of escalate inside, and then all of a sudden a little teeny tiny thing can make me explode. And it was like, well, where'd that come from? It's like, well, it's coming from all this baggage that you're kind of stashing inside, trying to appear to be the perfect person, and none of us are. And so I think that's the beauty of music, is it allows us to feel other people's journeys and to realize we all have our own, and that this, all of this stuff is normal. And then, that kind of creates that kindred spirit. You also talked about, as a group, coming together. I was just with a group of friends last night. We had a friend who passed away, and had buried her, done the celebration of life, and a group of us that were we called ourselves Team Janie, all got together for dinner. And it was a beautiful closure because everybody had their own stories, some happy, some sad, some not so pleasant. But everybody got to know each other better through that honest conversation that was really, just brilliant. And I think that's what music allows people to do in terms of getting us closer. And then last, I'd just like to comment that, we used music with my mom. In fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, I have pictures of her with music therapists and musicians singing to her, where in her end stages, she just comes alive and is so joyful. And even when she couldn't use words, you could see the smile, the glint in her eyes, her hands and her toes going, her body, moving to the music. She could still connect with all of that. And on my worst days, when I'm really struggling, where I go is to the YouTube channel to see my mom joyful. Very subtle, very little, very powerful. And it
Isn't
just
that
makes
beautiful?
It really is. And so, I think we have to be able to be present enough to connect and create those moments for ourselves and for others. And then, if you're able to, capture them in some type of format so you can still go back and literally physically see them if you can. My mom's been gone since 2014, and I still get great pleasure out of being able to see that. And for me, that is a sense of self-care because it fills me back up.
Yeah.
And
we need those filling moments somewhere. I mean, like have a whole repertoire of them you can turn to at any moment is fabulous.
Yep. And I don't think people see it as self-care. I think they see it as preserving a moment or a memory of somebody, but we're not going deep enough to realizing the effect on us that those moments have. That that when joy is created or a connection is made, I mean, it's deeper than one person. It's broader than that, and it can change a whole room of people who don't even know each other. There's this a ripple effect that we don't really see, but we can feel it if we're paying attention within a room.
A lot of the work is, which is ironic because, of course, we're talking about dementia here, but a lot of the work is raising awareness. And I don't mean by, making people think that music care is a thing. What I mean is helping people to see how deeply the music they love is connected to them. And that's a whole different kind of awareness, than just knowing what the terms are. And I think it comes alive so well if you're doing memory care. What was that film, Alive Inside?
Yep.
And it's been documented, like you did with your mom, that this sound, this rhythm, this stuff that we love, that we call music, is so deeply embedded in our physiology that reminding us at a physiological level creates the response that you saw with your mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's kind of like it's again a rhetorical question, but if music can do that, why aren't we paying more attention? Right?
Well, exactly. Why aren't we giving prescriptions for music instead of, pharmaceuticals that cost, thousands of dollars? And
so I'm with you on that. Yes, good question.
And don't always have the outcomes. If you give somebody a pill, and even if it helps that person, but it typically doesn't have a ripple effect. Music does, though. So it's caring for, everyone involved, because it changes mood and physiology, the whole 9 yards. And when people can learn to care for themselves, it's easier for others to be around us too, because a lot of times we don't even know how we're acting. And the same goes for a person with dementia. When we can get to that spot of realizing when a person with dementia is joyful and comfortable, why don't we just take a deep breath and be in that space with them instead of, being busy to be busy, and really, again, being present and appreciating that. That builds on our relationships, and it gets us, I think, focused on what we all want, which is quality of life. And everyone's definition might be a little different, but it's important.
You've raised a real question that I think we could pay more attention to, we meaning all of us together, which is the difference between medication and other things that are available. If you can evaluate this, just if you're listening, you can evaluate this on your own. Take into consideration things like the safety of the medication versus the safety of music, and the effectiveness of the medication versus the effectiveness of music. Things like that are important. And if you have any questions about those things, there's lots of information out there. The American Music Therapy Association website has a whole long page on what music is best to use, and it's a fantastic resource. It doesn't say too much about things like safety and whatever, but it cautions people against turning up the volume too loud, of course, and then helping to pick the right music is a big part of it, because that the music that a given individual loves is their most powerful music. It might be different than yours. So all of these things come into consideration. But, if you were to compare, music versus drugs, especially the ones that do things like boost your dopamine, I think you'd be really impressed, listeners, if you did this, at the effectiveness of music to do the kind of joy-giving that a lot of those dopamine and SSRIs do, to do the kind of calming that we currently use drugs to, medicate for ADHD. And music, at least in my mom's experience and in mine, has a great calming effect and focusing effect for people who are engaged in it. So it's really a great place for science to be looking at its alternatives right now, in spite of the fact that the funding goes to the people with the best medicine. We're no longer in that place. Music is making a challenge to that, and music therapy, for example, was approved last year for autism spectrum disorder, and that's huge. And it took 20 years, but it's music, people. You don't have to have a license to turn on the radio.
Yeah,
at least in this country.
Well, the other thing is, when you were talking about side effects, a lot of times with a drug, it's either, take it or don't take it. There's not another option. There might be a couple, that you can move within. But music, if there's a side effect, if something triggers someone to be sad or to be angry, you have millions of songs to choose from. And, there's not a huge cost difference there at all. The accessibility can be pretty simple. And, there's been a lot of I think, research done in terms of genres and being able to access this stuff pretty simply And again, and then if you work with a music therapist as a whole, they're going to take it to a whole different level in terms of what, us average Joes can do. But, to me, it just doesn't make sense that we're not investing in some of these alternatives. And to me, it really brought it to light with the new Alzheimer's drug being approved. What is
yes.
it? Aduhelm at $56,000, for the drug.
Yep.
But then there's still the infusion, there's still the PET scans and the different study things that are going to have to come into play with that aren't in that $56,000. And, what's going to be covered. And you just think, oh, my gosh. Just think of what you could do with just $56,000, period, let alone
right.
that being just for one person. That's the part that just kind of amazes me. Or when, Cohen did the Alive Inside, he was like, why aren't we writing prescriptions for iPads and
right.
iPods, for people? This is where we're at. We need this accessibility for people to partake in. And I want to talk about, with music care, because people always think of therapy kind of as a one-on-one or it's group therapy. How do people become part of this music care, and how is it different from music therapy? And in that, how do they participate, I guess, would be the question.
Good question. So the main difference, Lori, is that music care is about giving your own self-care, and music therapy is about relying on a therapist to guide the experience of your therapeutic journey, whatever it might be. And that's amazing, right? Because we need experts who have the psychological background, have the music background, can actually guide you in that way. But music is so much a part of who we are. We're vibratory beings. Every cell in our body is vibrating, and we respond so profoundly to external vibration. They call it entrainment, where you can actually bring a room full of people in a concert with you on a journey, on an emotional journey or mental journey. That's just what we do as human beings. So being able to use that for yourself, for example, instead of randomizing your playlist, organize a playlist around a process or around a task. That's how music care works, by taking you on an intentional journey instead of just allowing whatever random sounds to come your way. And you can actually guide your progress through that process, and whatever that process might be. It might be using music to help you be compassionate. That's a great one. What music is your compassion music? And have you organized that in a way that helps you be at your most compassionate when you need to be? And then, of course, there's this marvelous thing that we talked about practice earlier, is that if you do practice listening to your compassion music, the moment that you need that compassion to kick in and deploy it in real life, if you've done the practice, you physiologically respond to the music that you remember the same way that you respond to music you hear. So all that you need to do, it's like, when a piece comes on that triggers a memory care patient to remember things, the same effect happens when you internally remember your music. You're physically ready to offer compassion. Your face softens and you're able to smile more easily. Your demeanor changes. You have the emotional awareness. You're starting to offer that connection to people who need that compassion from you, to whom you need to be compassionate. You have the mindset of compassion comes in, and you know that certain things you have to do and how to structure your speech in ways that are appropriate for that situation. And then the most beautiful thing of it all is when you do all of that, the people that tell me they can read faces say that all of that is the invitation to the connection with the person for whom you want to have compassion. That spiritual thing we talked about earlier, all of that opens up too. And that's just from using music with a little bit of intention. So imagine what you could do, with full understanding, and, just more than having a compassion playlist. What could you do if you had like a structured group playlist that help a group of people do this on a wider sort of sphere? So I spend a lot of my time teaching. I basically function as a teacher and help people to get to this place where they have a deep appreciation for how music works and how to deploy that music skillfully in whatever the situation might be. And I know music is always connected to things like exercise and relaxation, but look at the work that hip-hop has done with anger and fear. I don't think we'd be as peaceful as we are without rap and hip-hop, having given many people a way to skillfully embody their anger and fear, right? And that's got to come out some way. Why stuff it? You pointed out, stuffing it isn't great, but if you can feel that, and if it connects you to other people, wow, that's a skillful use of emotion. So if all this is happening all around us, even as you and I are speaking, people are getting this and using it, and yet we can take it deeper. We can go to a deeper place with it all and use those big emotions, the ones we like to call negative emotions. We can use those as fuel for really great purposes. I mean, who hasn't been compassionate? Hopefully everybody knows what that feels like, but compassion often is caused by something that makes us equally angry or scared. The building falls down in Miami. We're upset that people had to be hurt by that, and we're also empathetic with people who've lost their family or friends. So oftentimes all those big emotions are part of a given thing. I mean, it's tough to watch someone that you love deal with memory issues and ultimately to pass away. That could make me very angry, When I was a kid, it made me sort of curious with wonder, and my powerlessness was obvious. So those are parts of it too, and it all combines into music to be able to help us through those situations.
I agree. Wow, I think it's just such a cool concept, because I just think people don't think of music being able to assist them in that way, and yet I think everybody uses it without even knowing it. You get in the car and you put on your favorite show, and maybe it helps you just kind of decompress, leaving work or getting away from your kids or whatever the situation might be. But we don't even know that we're doing it. It's just something we've always done. And I think we've done it because it gives us comfort, and we haven't consciously recognized that. It's just, it's become habit in some ways, but we don't understand necessarily why and the benefits of why it's become habit.
There was a time a long time ago where the church was the only place where music was used. It was, there wasn't any secular music. I mean, there was, but it was holy, and it had this spiritual intent. And if you experienced music, you would experience it in a cathedral or some resonant space where every sound had a spiritual purpose, and it was there to overwhelm you and open you to the other. And it hasn't been that long ago, a few hundred, maybe 1,000 years. The music has now become to this much more secular, and yet its effect is the same. And it's not so much that it's the music; we need to remember the effect that it really has for us, and to go deeply into that potential is what's really available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very, very powerful. Now, can music care work along other sides and other modalities, other types of therapies in and of themselves?
I love this question. Thank you for asking it, Lori, because yes, of course, music I've found is much more than the universal language. It's also sort of the universal complement. So if your family is deeply Christian, for example, music is going to work as well for you as if your family is deeply Jewish or deeply Muslim. The belief that surrounds whatever your culture is compatible with music. And perhaps it's music of your culture, that is mostly what you would bring in. And that's fine too, but there it is, right? So music works alongside of religion. They've found music working fantastically in the operating room. So there's all of this physical aspect to music too. Patients, I'm going to say it on music, tend to have more successful and less painful surgeries than those who don't have music present. So there's that physical side of it too. And we all know, of course, how music can help us sustain heart rates and endurance and things like that. The modalities of care that are out there in psychology are all very receptive to music. EMDR, as a matter of fact, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is a big thing with traumatized veterans and others experiencing trauma, is all about doing this left-right stimulation of the brain. They call it bilateral stimulation. And it's not just eyes moving that can do that. Drummers have been doing that, and percussionists have been doing that for a long time. And anybody who plays a bowed or plucked instrument is doing that. And so there's this universal sense that music has been a part of the bilateral stimulation healing process for a long, long time now. Science is still understanding how that works. But I know of psychologists, some have written books about singing their therapy with their sessions and improvising music with their patients as they sing. Great way into the subconscious, if you will, so it's compatible with the psychological stuff. And let's see, what have we covered? Spiritual, psychological, mental. Fantastic way of being able to reach in to the part of the brain that may appear to be locked up, as we've all seen with Alive Inside and with your mom, how music was able to get in there and create some communication and some awareness where before there was none. So, yes, music comes alongside so many of these modalities in such beautiful ways. I happen to think that meditation with music is much better, for example, than without it. But that may just be me, because the meditative state that people who do this tell me they reach is the same state that I'm in when I'm performing. Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful. Of course, when I'm performing, there's music. So it's just so compatible, this awareness of music, with so much of what's happening out there, from talk therapy to surgery to dementia care, to what we do in the world of worship and of spirituality. I love the sound of the sun, for example. So even the physicists are starting to recognize the sounds that exist in our universe. Have you heard the sound of the wind on Mars? You can hear that now. Mm-hmm. So there's, the investigation of sound in our world is something that is becoming a beautiful and necessary thing too. Of course, everything vibrates, so it's got to be making some kind of a sound, right?
Yep. Yeah, really. That's for sure. Well, and like you mentioned, there are so many different connections there in terms of music. It's really an endless possibility in terms of how it works together with various modalities and stuff. I mean, people work out all the time with music. Meditation, a lot of times has that sound background, even if it's the ocean waves or nature calls, whatever. Just to put us in that space in time. Well, what haven't we covered that our audience needs to know about music care? I just think it's another brilliant service and concept that you're bringing to people in building this awareness about what is available to them.
I guess on an open-ended question like that, the biggest thing right now is perhaps counterintuitive for so many of us. And you hinted at it when you were talking about how emotions are sort of necessary components of keeping us safe and healthy and procreative and things like that. And the biggest sort of obstacle right now that music care is facing is one of awareness, which is why I spend a lot of time as an advocate. People sort of get music and they go, oh, yeah, I use music, that's fine. And without the deeper understanding of the potential that exists in music, it's easy to dismiss music care. And that's totally fine. I get that. So the challenge that we have right now is finding evangelists who, like yourself, are willing to bring these concepts into their realm of influence. into being a part of Dementia Map is wonderful, right? Because that offers another perspective on what's available, and finding those evangelists in any of the various different verticals that are out there, from healthcare, which is big, to things like employees returning to work. The human resources area right now is inundated with challenges that are all potential opportunities for music care, for people to bring their awareness of music into those opportunities and help resolve them. This worldwide shift between this sort of more patriarchal society and the more matriarchal, post-industrial, post-information age kind of society that we want to see, that's more compassionate and inclusive and diverse and all of that, that's a fantastic opportunity for our cultural awareness to be expanded through music. And there are amazing people are leading on all of these fronts, of course. But I've got to find anyone who's really willing to go and lead with music care as a way to cross cultures, for example, or to enhance treatments. Whatever your lane happens to be, music care has an opportunity for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when you were talking about enhancing other treatments, I mean, I'm even thinking like the dental office, they have, a lot of them have the scenery and they're doing the music, trying to keep people calm from the drill that's going to be happening and stuff. There's so many different levels. I really kind of think, though, that COVID has elevated people's awareness of what brings them comfort. Being isolated, I think people had time to kind of think deeper of, is this doing anything for me or not? And so, I think timing-wise is really good in terms of bringing this forth, because I just think there is a lot more power and belief in calmness in this crazy world that we're living in right now. I mean, I don't care where you are in the world, everything seems to be erupting and kind of falling apart, from government to healthcare to education to how we work, how we interact. I mean, everything's kind of being just stripped away and needs to be put back together. And so I think people are much more open to alternatives than what they used to be. And I think that they also have experimented a lot more in that realm, just from a sanity point. If I'm home alone, what's going to make me feel comfortable here? What gives me a sense of calm in this kind of crazy world we're living in? I think a lot of people have gone through that. You've seen people kind of get back to basics, and people who have had very busy jobs and said, boy, I've really enjoyed being home with my family. I didn't realize how much I missed them, and how much I value this, and how much I lost by not being here, thinking that I needed to do it a different way. So I think timing-wise is really, really good right now for raising awareness. And I think there's kind of a level of consciousness and openness that is available that wasn't a couple of years ago. And I don't know if you feel that way or not.
I definitely agree with you about that. I have a podcast I co-host, and it's about authenticity and folks who are on sort of the leading edge of authenticity in the world. And I do feel that. We can see some amazing leaders, for example, in the gender community, who are able to offer us the compassion that they want, right, by leading by example, which allows us a way to be able to give that back to other people who are in their gender process, right? We wouldn't have had that kind of awareness, I think, without COVID. It would have come, but COVID has speeded that up. There's more of a worldwide awareness of what it means to be free, to have liberty in the world. There's, of course, great questions about who's got our best interest at heart, but music is non-political, and it doesn't take anything to join together in singing some piece of music that inspires everyone around you. Obviously, patriotic music is sort of fraught right now, but church music seems to be a great way for people to gather around. And, of course, we've seen all these amazing multi-voice videos that have been produced during COVID too, folks singing all kinds of songs together, and that's wonderful. I mean, it is completely unifying to sing with someone else. You cannot avoid the connection that happens, right? Even if you don't sing, like singing isn't my thing, but I love to go to sing-alongs, and to watch one happen or to participate in one is a fantastic way of coming to ground, of being able to join with other people in solidarity around just being together as human beings. And we need that. And yes, so thank you, COVID. So we have that awareness. At least I would say the majority of people probably do. Mm-hmm. And if you're listening to this and you're in a country or a particular region that's still dealing with COVID in a devastating way, I'm thinking of people in India right now. Wow, I mean, put some music on, sing that, or listen to that, or chant to that, or whatever it is, to just bring you back to a place where you can be fully human, as all of us are, which is both beautiful and broken at the same time. It's our brokenness that creates our differences, but those differences are the beauty that we each have, and we can celebrate the fact that we are all in this together as both beautiful and unique individuals at this time, and that at some point or another, all of us are going to exit the world, and hopefully we can do that also with the same kind of beauty that we're bringing to it now, even though so much tragedy has taken so many people from us over the last couple of years.
Very true. Very, very true. I know one thing that people are probably wondering, to have a session with you to learn more about this. Do you have some kind of fee schedule, or how do you work with people on this?
I'm fairly accessible, Lori. The best way to sort of begin that process would be to hop on the landing page for the Quest. So I teach all of this with an online quest that you can go through on your own, or you can go through with a mentor, or you can go through one-on-one. It's cost dependent. But that page where you can also find how to talk with me for free, there's links you can get on my calendar from there, is quest.musiccare.net. And use the free links to book some time and we can talk about it, or ask questions. There's a way to email from there. It's great to have a single place to go, and just a good starting point for everybody. So quest.musiccare.net. And then I like to be really accessible, so I don't often do this, but I'll be happy to share a telephone number. If anybody wants to contact me, grab a pencil, and I can give that to you.
Oh, great.
It's 800-785-8596. So reach me direct, 800-785-8596.
Wonderful. And then for email, would it just be bill@quest.musiccare.net? Or do you prefer that they go through, is there, I don't know, maybe you have an email form on your website?
There's a contact form on the website, but you can also text me at that 800 number. So, email can be sort of cumbersome these days. So if you want to write a long email, please do use the contact form at quest.musiccare.net, or text me, 800-785-8596. I respond pretty promptly.
Wonderful. Well, Bill, thank you for all you're doing to make our world a better place. I appreciate your passion, and I will do everything I can to lift Music Care up. And I appreciate so much that you are part of Dementia Map as well. And I highly recommend people go to the website. Again, that's quest.musiccare.net. And reach out to Bill. As you know, just from our conversation, he's a fantastic guy, and I know you'll have an interesting conversation. So again, Bill, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Lori. So great to have this chat. Thank you.
Wonderful. For those of you listening, Alzheimer Speaks has all kinds of different resources. You can find those at alzheimerspeaks.com. Hopefully in the next month or so, we will be launching our new website, so be looking for that. I can't wait for that to come to life. It's going to be much easier, and I think a more vibrant, easier site to maneuver as well. So take care, and we will talk to you next week, everyone. God bless. Bye-bye.
It's time to rethink. renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesti here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now, this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.